Good luck to it. People had to be more careful, and rightly so. But there was a cousin of mine, and this guy is about the same age as me, and he's a very wonderful person, Matty. We think a lot of him in the family. But, you know, he had a bit of a problem drinking. He had a bit of a problem. And when this thing came out, he made an announcement for all of us, all his relations, to come up to the house. He had an announcement to make to us. And we weren't sure what he was going to say. But anyway, we went up there, and he stood in front of us, and he says, "You people," he says, "are my flesh and blood. And I love you all." And he says, "You know that I have a problem with the drink, and I need your help." He says, "With all this thing about driving and drinking," and he says, "sometimes in the past I have been careless and I may have driven, perhaps when I had a drink too much. But from now on," he says, "I've changed my ways, and that's it. I'm finished driving." He says, "I'll drink, but I certainly will never take a chance to drink." And I have to say, in fairness to him, all over the Christmas period, he came home from the pub every night drunk, but walking, just walking. All through the New Year's into January, every single night he came home scuttered, but walking. And all through February, Lent, every night during Lent, home drunk, but walking. And we were so proud of him. But then Easter Sunday, that's when the bubble burst. He had been drinking on Easter Sunday, and he was on his way home from the pub early in the day. It was in the afternoon. He was either been drinking in a well-known pub close to the city of Galway, and he was either been in there drinking, and he decided, that's it. So he's walking home. He's walking home. He lives in Limerick. And he's walking home, and apparently, as he came through the town of Bridge, he was coming through the town, and he noticed a very large gathering of people gathered around the river at the bridge. And they were being addressed by a preacher. What would you call an evangelist was addressing the crowd. And Matty decides to join in. And he gets in among the crowd, and the evangelist calls a gentleman. "Gentleman here," he says, "with a pinstripe suit, come forward." And the man comes up, and the evangelist says, "Hallelujah." The man says, "Hallelujah." And the evangelist says, "Do you believe in God?" The man says, "I do, sir." He said, "Saints be praised." And the evangelist put his hand charismatically on the back of this man's neck, and he pushed his head forward into the water. And then he pulled it back out of the water again, and he said to the man, "Did you see Jesus?" The man says, "I did, sir." He said, "Saints be praised, hallelujah. Satan is renounced here today." And he pushed him aside, and he called another man, and he put his charismatic hand on the back of the man's neck, and he pushed his head forward into the water and pulled it back out again. "Did you see Jesus?" The man says, "I did, sir." He said, "Saints be praised, Satan is renounced here again." And he went through 20 or 30 men and women, and Matty was getting itchy feet. And Matty comes forward and stands in front of the evangelist. And the evangelist knew, looking at him, this could be a problem. He knew by the look of Matty, this fella's after having a few sherbets, and I'm going to have a problem with him. And he says, "Hallelujah." Hallelujah. "Do you believe in God?" "Because I do." "Saints be praised." And he put his hand on Matty's neck, and he pushed his head forward into the water, and he pulled it back out again. "Did you see Jesus?" "No." So now the evangelist has to think, and he figures, I'll try it again, but I'm going to have a problem. This time, he said, "Hallelujah." "Hallelujah again." "Do you believe in God?" "Because I do still." "Saints be praised." And he put his hand on the back of Matty's neck, and he pushed his head forward again into the water. A little further into the water. And pulled it out again. "Did you see Jesus?" "No sign of him at all." Now the evangelist has a serious problem. And this time the evangelist reacts. And he grabbed a hold of the back of Matty's neck like that, and the hair and the shirt and the collar, and you could almost hear the evangelist saying, you'll see him this side. You are drunken bastard. And with that, he pushed his head into the water and he put his foot on it like that. And he held his head under the water for 4 minutes. Everybody's fascinated. All they can see is bubbles coming up everywhere. Bubbles all over the place. They thought he was drowned, and then he pulls him back out. He says, now, did you see Jesus? And Matty says, are you sure? Are you sure this is where he fell in? This breathalyzer thing, and I know that everybody's aware of it and everything else, but girls, you'll appreciate this. I went out recently with my wife, and I did say to my wife, I'll be the designated driver. You should have the few drinks yourself. Wasn't that the right thing to do, girls? I said, you should have the odd drink, I says to her. Odd drink, I said. Forgetting for a moment that 11 is an odd number. And 15 is an odd number. Come 6 o'clock that evening, she was footless. She was footless. She couldn't stand up straight. So I poured her back into the car. We're heading out the dark road, and I could see in front of me about 200 yards, the hand up. You can't miss the checkpoint, come on. You can see it, Garda, and you'll see the blue tit going around on the top of the car, and I can see, stop! So I came up beside him, and he walks over to the car. And this is the thing about this new thing that they have in the Garda. When they stop the car, get the head in the window. So they can get a sniff. And now the sniff in my car that night, my car must have smelled like Guinnesses from the amount of drink that she was at having. So the guard puts the head in the window, and he said to me, have you taken alcohol? And I don't know what came over me. I decided I'd have a bit of fun with him. You see, because it's a long old night, and I figured, if nothing else, it'll cheer him up. Because they have a great sense of humour, the guards, as you know. Especially the traffic corps. So, when he asked me had I alcohol, I kind of said, he took his head out the window fairly quick. He nearly took the head off himself trying to get it out of the window. Have you taken alcohol? I said, half a bottle of gin. 7 pints of hydrogen. Bottle and a half of fuck. 11 tins of Bulmer's cider, to which nothing is added but time. And half a giraffe wine. Well, his reaction to that was incredible. There was another guard with him. He was stopping cars coming this way. And my fella said, John, come on here, man. Look at this big James, have a look at this, like. This, I have to see this. He said, could you repeat that now to this guard here? And I said, I can't remember. Well, he read me the riot act all. I must warn you that the question of a prosecution will be considered under Section 51A, 52 and 53 of the Road Traffic Act 1961 as amended by the Road Traffic Act 1968 and further amendments since 1972, 73, 74, CIE, BBC, RTE, UTV, TV3 and... He says, you'll have to blow into this bag. And I said, why? Do you not believe me? Well, I tell you, I was actually playing golf that day with a lot of my friends. 18 holes of fabulous golf. And when it was finished, we all decided to go in and naturally have our showers and go out and have the meal and a few drinks. So we're all in the showers, a lot of lads, you can imagine, all standing around, you know, they'd be all kind of, they'd have no inhibitions, you know, they'd be all there washing themselves and there'd be nobody covering themselves up. Do you understand? Like girls, it's difficult for you to understand because in a girl's shower, I'm sure there's a lot more decorum and privacy, if you like. You know, I've never been, I've never been, but anyway, we're all doing the shower. And suddenly, this fella Cahill points over. And as I looked around, I couldn't believe, but this fella was wearing a kind of a lady's... No, I'm not making this up. It was a lady's, a kind of, do you know them, kind of a sexy garment. What's the lady thing? A tongue. A tongue. Your woman says a tongue. He wasn't that bad. No, it wasn't a tongue. It was the other thing that ladies wear. Do you know the sexy kind of a black thing with the little things hanging down? What do you call it? A gentleman here seems to have the answer. It's always a fella who gets that one. Suspenders, that's right, sir. Suspenders. But your man was actually in the shower wearing the suspender. I couldn't believe it. The full gear. And I didn't want to make fun of him because he could have... I didn't know what... And I said to him, you don't mind me asking you, how long have you been wearing the ladies' sexy suspenders? And he says, ever since the wife found it on the back seat of my car. And the poor bad, like I'm going to think about it. This fella now has to wear it for the rest of his life, pretending his back is hurting or something like that, just because he was caught out. Happens all the time. Like I had two pals out one morning. You know, they're 8 o'clock in the morning playing golf, and it was a beautiful day, and they were out on the 7th tee, and they're lining up the ball, and they look across to the 8th tee, across the fairway, and they can see on the 8th tee 2 women doing the same thing. They're lining up the ball, and they're preparing to shoot, and then they stop for a minute, and they're laughing, and the laughter is echoing across the fairway, and they're putting on lipstick, and they're smoking a cigarette. So one fella says, he says, would you ever go over, Noel? He says, go over there and tell them to either to move back and let us play through or to hurry up. And his pal makes a run across the fairgreen, gallops across the fairgreen, gets within 10 yards of the 2 women and stops dead. Buries his head and runs back. And the pal says, why didn't you go the whole way? He says, I couldn't get involved there. He says, one of those 2 women happens to be my wife. The other fella says, well, that's no harm. There's no harm in that. Your wife is entitled to go out and play golf like us. He says, I know. He says, but the one she's playing golf with is the one that I'm having an affair with at the moment. He said, I couldn't go. So the other fella says, well, I'll go over. And he makes a run across the fairway. I think you're with me on this one. And he turns back as well. And he goes back to his friend and he says, because it's a small world. What's good for the goose is good for the gander, huh? It happens all the time, ladies and gentlemen. You know that. We live in a modern society now. Days change as you go along. Look at the prices today. Did anybody ever see that, like the prices today? Absolutely ridiculous. And I like to buy, I'm being honest with you, I have a great, understanding of giving gifts. And my wife, Eileen, my wife, Eileen, in actual fact, I like to get her something nice, especially at Christmas. Because she's the best wife, I'll be honest now, she's the best wife that money could buy. I decided this particular year to get her something nice. And I'm lying in the bed that morning, demented, trying to think of what am I going to get my wife for Christmas. So I'm lying in the bed, and I said to my wife's sister, I was on the phone. I was on the phone to her, you dirty shit. You're a shower. You have minds like sewers. And I'm trying to figure out what I get. So I said, the best thing I'll do is I'll ask my wife when she comes in from work. So she came in it was about 7:30 in the morning, and I says to her, no, she works. No, there's a bit of night work for me. But anyway, I said to her, I said, what would you like for Christmas? I said, there's no need to think of the price. I said, it's a gift I'm getting you. Don't think of the price of it. What do you want? Anything. Oh, I want something with lots of diamonds in it, she said. So I got her a deck of cards. But she's luckier than most, in a way, because we've a particular couple. They're friends of ours, and the husband in this couple wouldn't be, he wouldn't be my cup of tea, to be honest, because he's not very good to his wife. He's not giving, and he's not kind and everything. He's a bit of a gouger, to be honest, this guy. I remember I met him one day in town, and I says to him, how are you, John? I says, I haven't seen you for 6 months. What were you doing? He said, 6 months. And it was good enough for him. Now, this girl that I'm talking about, she's an oppressed housewife. And, she tells my wife everything. They confide in each other. She was telling my wife, he came home one particular night and he had quite a few drinks for him. And she was sitting up in the bed crying. And he came in and he saw her. And she said, oh, what am I going to do? He said, what are you crying for? She said, we've just had a burglar in the house. And he says, did he get anything? She says, yes. I thought it was you. This girl that I'm talking about, by the way, she told my wife how she got even with her husband. And it happened one night. It was a kind of a cold autumn evening. And she was sitting by the fire, which had very little fuel. There was a couple of briquettes and a log. There wasn't even a bit of coal. And she was sitting at that fire, wrapped up in a kind of a dressing gown, a house coat. And she was trying to make herself warm. And he comes down the stairs in a beautiful pinstripe suit and lovely tie and shiny shoes and a gabardine overcoat. And he's coming down the stairs like Lord Muck. And that was the straw that broke the camel's back. And she got up off that little sofa and she went out to the front door to him. She said, come here, you come here, you streaker, come here. You're the one that has me downtrodden in my life. And I'm not taking it anymore. He said, what's wrong? Are you not happy? She said, this is a kip. This is a kip I'm living in. I haven't it. She said, come here for a second. Come here. Have a look at the telly. Look at that TV. Yeah, it's like looking at Frosty the Snowman. Frosty the Snowman, there's no picture in it. I can barely see what's going on. And the bloody fridge, I can't even keep a choc ice in the fridge. It melts in the fridge because the fridge hasn't been working for 2 years. And on your way down to the front gate, have a look at all the paving slabs. Look at all those paving slabs on the way to the front gate. They're like the 10 Commandments. They're all broken. And he says, hold on, he says, now, as regards the television, he says, can you see written up here, Mr. Sony? So, but what about the fridge? He said the same thing. He says, I'm not an expert. He said, perhaps I didn't notice when I was shaving. He says, maybe it's written up here, Mr. Zanussi. And she says, I hope you break your... On the way down to the front gate, I hope you fall and break your promise. Hold on for a minute. Can you see written across me here, Mr. Roadstone? And he went off. And he came back at 2 o'clock in the morning. He got out of the taxi. He opened the front gate, and every paving slab was brand new. There was gravel in between them, a few plants. He couldn't believe it. He walked in the front door, walking by the sitting room, and there's his wife sprawled across the couch. And she has a glass of Chardonnay. with icicles dripping from it. And he gets the shock of his life when he sees the TV she's looking at, and it's perfect picture. It's perfect. He says, what's going on? Well, she says, while you were out, I had a bit of a makeover. I decided I'd try to get a few things done. So I decided to go down to my friend Nancy, and I said to her, there's a disco on in the hotel, let's go down to it. And we went to it, and we met a couple of very nice, young, virile men. And they bought us a few drinks.
Yeah.
And later that night, I finished up and I was about to walk out, and the man that I was with happened to say, why are you leaving so soon? And I said, well, it's getting late for me to get the bus home, so I can't afford a taxi. And he says, sit down. He said, sit down, I'll get you a few more drinks, and I'll take you home in my Mercedes. And when he got me home, he tripped up coming up the passageway. And he said, I can't believe this place is so bad. He says, as it happens, I'm a handyman.
Yeah.
And he fixed every single paving slab. And he put lights down and all. And he came inside and he saw the state of the TV. And he went over and he twiddled a few knobs. And the picture of the TV came up brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And then he asked me if he could have a cold beer. And I said, you could, except my fridge is broke. And he had it fixed in 5 minutes.
Oh, is that right? Yeah.
He said, what did this man charge you for all of this? Well, she said he actually didn't take money. He decided to take a benefit in kind.
What kind?
Well, as it happens, he gave me a choice. He said he would accept either of the following two. Either I could bake him a really nice cake with icing on it, or I could take him upstairs and bring him on a tour of the front room.
Is that right? Yeah. Is it as a matter of interest, what kind of a cake
did you bake for this nice man? And she says, come here, she says, do you see Mr. Kipling written? You know, as we sit here, we're safe. I want you to know that. You're safe, brand new building. But it's only when you stick your snot outside the door. It's only when you go outside the door that you're being watched. As we sit here tonight, there are 93 satellites orbiting the Earth. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and they're up to no good. We are being watched. And the last one that went up, the last Apollo one that went up, he could just hit a button like that, and you could be sitting in your car in a traffic jam, as you do, picking your... You know the way people sitting in the car, and he just hits the button, and he can zoom in on the windscreen of your car. That's the technology. In fact, he can even hit another button, tax disc. He can look at the tax disc on your car in your town, and he would know sooner than the Garda Síochána whether your car is taxed or not. That's the technology that they have in America today. And Bin Laden escaped on a donkey. Donkey, when he came over the border from Afghanistan with your man on his back and his tail was up in the air, they didn't even get his number. And it's not a new thing. Can anybody remember the first satellite that ever went into space? Can anybody remember the name? Come on, somebody tell me. Way back. Sputnik, who said it? Sputnik #1. That satellite went up somewhere around 1960, and it was up there in space, and it was watching us. And those Russians, by the way, and I'm being honest about this, they had spies. They had a spy in every country in Europe, including Ireland. Now, you're probably saying to yourselves, how do I know all? I'll tell you, I read it in an article in a magazine on the plane, and I forget what, it was The Messenger. And it said that this Russian spy was in Ireland, and they needed to make contact with him. And they couldn't phone him up from Russia because they were afraid somebody might tap the phone. So they decided to send their top KGB agent, Ivan Akharov. And they called him into the office of the KGB and they said, Ivan, we want to give you top secret message that you must deliver to our top secret spy in Ireland. You will get on board Aeroflot flight 229-644-312-7755293. The number for the flight was longer than the plane. And when you get on this flight, you will fly to Shannon, Ireland, and you will rent a car from Donnelly Car Rental. And you will drive car from Shannon Airport over to County Kerry, to town of Caher Saibin. The way you know it is him is by simply saying to him the secret code which will make him respond. You will say, the brown cow has left the green field. So that was the message. And that guy arrived, rented the car, went across over to Kerry. He's in Cahersiveen, and they said, all you have to do when you get there to find him is ask anybody, where is Murphy? Murphy in Cahersiveen. So he parked the car. And he's walking down the street to ask for Murphy. The first pub he sees, written over it, Murphy. Beside the pub was a florist shop, Murphy's Flower. Across the street, Murphy's Laundrette, Murphy's Dry Cleaners. The bakery was Murphy's, the butcher was Murphy's. The fish and chip shop was Murphy's. Everywhere was Murphy. So he decides, how will I find Murphy with all these people? And he got back into the car to drive back to Shannon to give up. And this is where the story took a turn. He's only 50 yards outside Cahersiveen. And he looks and sees in a field on his right a farmer ploughing. And the Russian stopped the car and he got out and he looks over and he says, Farmer! Farmer, I want you to come over to me. I'll give you where you're talking here. Who you are. I want you to come here to me. I have a question for you. I'll give you the But anyway, the farmer came over to him. And the Russian looks at him and he says, I am looking for Murphy. Huh? Should you put up to our arse and Murphy down here? Sure, in the town alone, sure, the Garda sergeant is Murphy, and the parish priest is Murphy, the curate is Murphy as it happens, the woman that runs the post office is Murphy, the lad that delivers the turf is Murphy, and sure God, I'm Murphy myself. And that's when the Russian got the inspiration. He kind of said to himself, this could be my lucky man, this could be the man. And he stood back, and he looked straight into his eye. Only one eye. He looks straight into his eye and he says, the brown cow has left the green field. And the farmer says, you're looking for Murphy the spy. I have a little story I want to tell you. It's just a little human nature story. My late Aunt Mary, and I love her very dearly, my Uncle Paddy, both passed away last year. But they were well up towards their 90s. and we used to take them out for a spin in the car and bring them out for lunch. But we decided to stay over with them one night down in the country, you see. And we were there with them, and we had our tea, and we're looking at the television. The two of them were sitting on the little sofa together like Darby and Joan. And around 10 o'clock in the evening, she decides to get up, you see. I'm getting up now. Wedgie. I'm going up the stairs. And she went upstairs, and look at Paddy is left there on his own, and we're having a chat with him. And about 10 minutes later, we hear boom, 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 a knock on the floor above. Paddy! Paddy!
I said, yes, what's wrong with you?
Said, would you like to come up the stairs and make love to me?
And he said, I can't do both.
And the following night, by the way, the two of them are sitting down, and again she kind of says to him, she says, Paddy, I have a bit of a longing.
Why are you alone?
Would you ever go out to the kitchen and get me a bowl of ice cream?
I will, of course.
He said, I'll write it down for you. And not at all. I remember that. And while you're there, sprinkle a few walnuts over it.
Two walnuts.
And let me write it down for you, because I know your memory isn't the way it doesn't matter, I can remember.
You want a bowl of ice cream and a few nuts sprinkled over.
And while you're out there, Paddy, would you ever pour a drop of that chocolate sauce over the nut? But I have a notebook here, I'll write it down in case, but I won't forget. It's only ice cream and a few nuts and a bit of chocolate sauce, but I'll get it for you. And while you're at it, Pat, would you ever stick a couple of wafer biscuits in the top of it?
I will.
But I'll write it down, because your memory now is not like it used to be. I'm not an idiot, sure, I remember ice cream, a few nuts and chocolate sauce and a couple of wafers. And he went out into the kitchen, and I'm not kidding you, he was out there for 45 minutes. 45 minutes, and we were wondering what happened. And the next minute, the door opened from the kitchen, and he comes in with a tray. And he's walking over to her, and he puts the tray down in front of her on the coffee table, and I'm not kidding. On the tray was a big white plate, and on the plate, I'll never forget, 2 rashers. There was 2 rashers on the plate, 2 sausages, a fried egg, and a half a grilled tomato. And he put it down in front of her. The dirty looking fucking Egypt. Jesus, look at that.
He said, well, what did I forget now?
She said, you forgot the toast. You couldn't make it up, she couldn't. But it's great, it really is. I remember getting my wife a present years ago. Again, I'm going back to value for money. About 20 odd years ago, before we ever moved over to America. And I remember one particular Christmas, she said, this year, she says, do you know what I'd love? I'd love a dog. So I says, I'll get you a dog. That's a normal enough present, if that's what you want. And I was hoping, probably selfish, but I was hoping that she'd want what I'd call a decent dog. A kind of a big fella, like a Labrador maybe, or a German Shepherd, or even a big mongrel. I'm hoping she'd want a big, I wanted a dog that a lad my size could take out for a walk without feeling like an idiot. But anyway, that's not what she wanted. She went the opposite way, and it turns out she wanted what do you call the small little, you know, I can't have a senior moment on me now, and I just can't. This fella, he'd be a cross between a Yorkshire Terrier and a rat. Do you know the dog I'm talking about? No, not a Shih Tzu. A Chihuahua. A Chihuahua. So she wanted a Chihuahua, and I says, I'll get it for you. I wasn't happy about it. But anyway. So I went into town to the pet shop, and I got the last Chihuahua they had in the litter. It wasn't a boy Chihuahua, no, it was a, what do you call a bitch. So anyway, I got the bitch, anyway, and I brought it home to her that evening in my top pocket. You see, I just wanted it. So I gave her to her, and I says, there you are now, enjoy it. And I wasn't happy about the idea, to be honest. I didn't want to have, you know, a dog under my feet, and especially for the first 3 months, you know, as you know, they leave surprises all over the house. So I didn't want it. Not that I would be unkind to an animal in any way. I would always be kind to animals. I'd never ever be unkind. I probably shouldn't say it, but I'm not looking for, you know, kudos for doing this, but I've given a lot of my money over the years to sick animals. I have. And I have no applause, please. I didn't realize they were sick when I was backing them. But anyway, what happened was, I have now got this Chihuahua with my wife. So one day my wife was out walking the bitch along the road. And next minute, the bitch walks into the bus stop. And she pulled the bitch back from the bus stop, and she walks down another bit, and the bitch walks into a parking sign. And when my wife examined, I thought the dog perhaps had lost her vision. And my wife says, it's nothing to do with her vision. The hair is at the ground down over her eyes. And as sure as I'm standing here, hadn't the hair grown down over the dog's eyes, and the bitch couldn't see where she was going. So my wife cut the hair off, and everything was fine. She did a little fringe, and then 6 months later, back comes the hair, and the dog walks straight into the lamppost again. And she could cut it again. And she was cutting it for a while, and it was our next door neighbour that said to her one day, there's no need to keep cutting. Don't have to keep cutting the dog's hair. There's an easier way of doing it. Tomorrow, when you're in town, go into the pharmacy and go in and ask Mr. Collins for a tube of Imac. And you rub it in the dog's forehead, and the hair will fall out naturally. She went in the following day on her bicycle. She cycled into the town, and she went into the pharmacy, and she says, good morning, Mr. Collins. I wonder, is it possible that I could have a tube of Imac? She didn't want to broadcast it because there was people in the chemist. He said, certainly, man, no problem. And he gave her the tube of Imac. And she was walking out of the shop, and suddenly he shouts after her, by the way, Mrs. Grace, in all the years you're coming into me here, I've noticed you never bought that particular product in the past. And he says, just in case you don't get a chance to read the instructions on the label, he says, just keep in mind that it's very potent. And he says, just remember, the first time you use it, don't wash your legs for about 48 hours. And my wife, through her embarrassment, forgot herself. And she says, she says, I won't be rubbing it on me legs. She says, I'll be rubbing it on me Chihuahua. And everybody in the chemist. And then to make matters worse, he shouts after me. He says, well, in that case, he says, you better not ride the bicycle for a couple of weeks.
Seven Up Winter Wonderland at Royal Hospital Cumain, Dublin sponsors Christmas on TV3.
He escaped death.
What's your name?
But can't remember how.
I don't know.
The only thing he does know is how to stay alive. Matt Damon in The Bourne Identity, Christmas Day at 9 on 3.
Girls from all over Ireland are flirting and having fun on the phone right now. To join them, call 1550 69 69 69 or text FLIRT to 57333. Lots of genuine girls are looking for fun, friendship, and maybe more. Call the party line now on 1550 69 69 69 and listen to hundreds of personal ads anytime.
Still think that's all just a bit of a laugh? Think again. Visit drinkaware.ie. Rethinking our drinking.
Let's face it, everyone who uses your loo is secretly judging it. So don't let your Rimblock's germy cage lower your score. For up to 1,000 flushes, Harpic Hygienic helps keep your loo smelling fresh and looking like new. Harpic Hygienic, like a new loo every time.
Coming home for Christmas is always something special. Christmas memories with ESB Electric Ireland.
I always wanted a red bike, and I remember I must have been only about 3 or 4 going down on Christmas morning, and there it was under the Christmas tree. A lot of my friends had to move away, and they will all be coming home for Christmas this year, and there's like 3 of them who moved away during the year, so it'd be nice for everyone to get together this year. Well, it's hard to beat 2011 because that was the year I got married, so I think the thing I'm most looking forward to in 2012 is to stay married, be happy and healthy. Getting together with family, there's nothing nicer, because throughout the year, I think the way things are with people working hard, you don't get a chance to spend time with your family. Christmas and New Year always revolves around the theatre, children roaring up, oh yes you are, oh no you're not, and that whole feeling of just a wonderful Christmas spirit with panto and children and New Year celebrations.
Coming home for Christmas is always something special. Christmas memories with ESB Electric Ireland.
Sometimes the best thing about going away is feeling like you've never left home. There's nothing like sleeping in your own bed, unless you're in one of ours. You owe it to yourself to enjoy the finer things in life. Dare Manor, Ireland's premier home from home. But home never felt this good.
We Irish are passionate about our rasher sausages and ham. We love the taste and quality of truly traditional Irish pork.
That's why Truly Irish is 100% Irish. Not only supporting 8,000 Irish jobs, but also top quality, locally produced Irish pork products.
With 82% pork sausages and rashers that taste great, aren't full of water and don't shrivel away.
Truly Irish, not just a name.
It's our guarantee.
The winter sale starts St. Stephen's Day in all Brown Thomas and BT2 stores from 9 a.m. See brownthomas.com for details. Whatever you do, don't miss it.
7 Up Winter Wonderland at Royal Hospital Cumain, Dublin sponsors Christmas on TV3.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to introduce you to someone very, very special. He's been with me for a long, long time. Give a big, big welcome to me old pal, Butler.
Hey, what are you still doing here? This is my bit.
Well, I'll leave it with you, so.
Right. And you're all looking at me. I had a very tough upbringing. I really had. I can never forget all those days, all those days, weekends, that my mommy and daddy used to send me up to me granny and me granddad, and I had to stay with them for the weekend. And it was so cold in that cemetery. We were so poor. I was breastfed by me granny. I'll never forget it. I remember at Christmas time, the only possible thing that you could get through Christmas with was if you got a toot-a-toot to play with. And a toot-a-toot was something that I can always remember. It's the little cardboard thing that's left when the toilet roll is finished. And that's how it got its name. And you could get 6 weeks out of that before it got really soggy. And I can always remember, because toys were different. When I think of what they get today, I said to a bloke recently, a little fella, and I said to him, so did you write to Santy? He said, no, I sent him a text. And I said to him, so what are you getting for Christmas? He said, I'm getting a PlayStation 3 and an Xbox and an electric scooter with an engine and a laptop and a plasma television for my bedroom wall and a surprise. How could you surprise a child like that? I know how I'd surprise him. I'd take it back. I'd take all the stuff back and I'd really give him a surprise. You see, when I was small, I was the little boy. I was the original little boy that Santa Claus that's the truth. Santa Claus forgot. Yeah, he did. I remember one Christmas, we got no food. Honest to God. I was walking around the street and you could smell all the Christmas dinner smell coming from every house except ours. Yeah, and I knew from early that year, I knew from October that we weren't getting the turkey. Yeah, because I see me mammy buying a chest expander for the budgie. And then about 3 days before Christmas, me dad got myself and my sister and he took us out on the bus and I said, this is it, we must be going in to town, to Thailand, in Pims, in town, to see Santy. I'll never forget. And he brought us on the bus. And the bus came to Hardy's Cross. And my father got off the bus with the two of us. And he brought us inside the gates of Mount Jerome Cemetery. And he showed us Santa's grave. My daddy didn't love me altogether. I'm sure you were the same. Did your dad ever thump you? And then he'd say, you'll thank me for that one day. You wouldn't hang him for it then. We had an Australian teacher in the school one day, and he was like, "Good on, mates, can I get on with that?" And he produced a boomerang, and he says, "Now," he says, "today I'm going to throw the boomerang into you guys in the classroom." And one fella said, "So, will it come back to you?" And one fella said, "Well, if it hits me, it will." They were great days. Our teacher one day said, now what we're going to do is, we're going to do our geometry class, and we're going to ask Rasha O'Callaghan. And Rasha came up, and he says, now Rasha, I want you to draw on the board now, to draw a square. And Rasha went up, and he kind of went, shh, 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 shh. He said, that's very, very good. Now draw a triangle. Okay, so, and he went, shh, shh, shh. He said, that's great. And now I want you to draw a rectangle. And he went, very, very good. And he said, I want you now to draw a ring. He said, okay, so. Well, he said, that's not a ring. He said, no, it's a boxing ring. He was trying to hurry up the classes, and he announced that he was doing 2 classes now at the one time. Drawing and religion at the same time. And he says, now class, I want you all to draw on your copybooks what in your mind reminds you and depicts the flight into Egypt. So I want you all to draw. And we were all drawing, and and the little girl in the front, little Angela, he went down, he says, now Angela, what are you drawing? I am drawing a picture of Holy God. He said, well, Angela, how can you draw a picture of Holy God? He said, nobody knows what Holy God looks like. Well, she said, they will when I'm finished this picture. And he looks at the other fella. Raise a mulligan. Have you drawn the flight into Egypt? Yes, sir. And up he comes, as proud as could be, and he has the drawing there of the flight into Egypt. And he was cheating a bit because it was just a plane, an airplane on the drawing. And the teacher said, what is this? And so he said, that is the flight into Egypt. Very good. He said, and who are the 3 people at the back of the plane? And he said, so that is Joseph, Mary, and the baby Jesus. Very good. He said, and who's the person in the front here of the plane? He said, that's Punches the Toilet. You stupid. And then he said, little boy here, Pockets Malone, come forward. And Pockets comes up with his drawing, and I have to say, he definitely put a bit of effort into his drawing. You could see on his drawing, there was 3 people in it, very clear. There was a kind of a horse. There was a little spot beside the horse, and there was a load of pieces of Toblerone all along the ground. Triangle Toblerone. And the teacher said, what is this? So that is the flight into Egypt. Well, he said, can you explain it to me? Yes, sir, he says, the 3 people here, that's Joseph, Mary, and the infant Jesus. And this is the donkey. And they're all the pyramids in Egypt, all along there. Very, very good. And he said, what is this little dot, little spot here? And he said, so that is the flea. He said, what has the flea got to do with the flight into Egypt? Well, he said, didn't the angel Gabriel come to Joseph and he said, you're to take Mary and the child and flee into Egypt? So very, very much.
goodness. I can always tell by the enthusiasm how long I'll be on, so I'd like to finish off now with that. Years ago, we used to be terrified talking about the facts of life and things like that to kids because we didn't know, really and truly. But it's called biology nowadays. That's it. They know it all. They learn it in school. No need for us to tell them. But by God, when I think of the lies we were told. The places we were supposed to have come from. That's right, children. I wouldn't eat cabbage until I was about 23 years of age. For fear I'd leave some child homeless. That's right, children. That's right. Now, I was found under a head of cabbage, kids. Isn't that funny, huh? Your Uncle Brendan was found under a head of cabbage. My sister was found in a matchbox. And most of my cousins were found in a rhubarb patch. There wasn't a natural birth in our family for as long as I can remember. And it was all lies. I don't know why they bothered. Ridiculous. And there was a woman next door to us. Now, I lived in the heart of Dublin, in a very, very special part of Dublin. We lived in a little semi-detached house. Well, it was detached, really. You know, it was on its own, I suppose. It was falling away from the rest of the street. And the woman next door to us was on the pill. It's very hard to imagine that. When I was a child, she was on the pill. God forgive us all, she was on the pill. For 14 years, she was on the pill before she realised she was taking aspirin. She'd 17 children, but she never had any headaches all during that time. So I suppose it only goes to show that God never closes one door, but he opens another. And, sure. And I really had a smashing childhood. When I think about the kids next door to us, if you can visualise the situation. I mean, by the way, next door, the people next door, the woman next door to us, they had a little backyard, and we used to look out the window. I can always remember looking out, and they had a hen in the backyard, a little chicken running up and down, and which was unusual. Now, if you can imagine, you know, to have, you know, in the heart of Dublin, to have a farm type of an animal outdoors, or indeed anything you could eat, to keep it outdoors was, you know, taking a risk. So I remember, I knew it was a hen. I knew well it was a hen. But my father, Lord rest his soul, my father actually told me that that's not a hen, that's the stork. With his legs worn down to his knees. From landing outside that house. With them 17 chiselers. And I look back to it now and I feel, really I was innocent, was I not? Weren't we all? We were innocent. Although I suppose old traditions die hard, don't they, look? They die hard, and there we are now. I look at the kids nowadays and, you know, I even see the difference now with children. Their eating habits are totally different now. Whoever thought the day would actually come in our lifetime that you'd have to bribe a child to finish his food? You know, you will finish our turnips and you'll get jelly and ice cream. And if you eat your Brussels sprouts, you get a crunchy. We didn't have to be encouraged. Did we have to be encouraged? Not at all. There was a thing then called hunger. That's right, hunger. Which meant that if you didn't finish it yourself, somebody else would finish it for you. Even if you wanted to finish it, somebody else would finish it for you. I had a sister who had teeth with power steering. Honest to God, you had to count your fingers every time you took your hands away from the table. It was amazing, and that's why, you know, that's why I compare it today. Maybe I'm wrong to compare kids today. Maybe I'm wrong. But I mean, if the children today, like if the child now wants something to eat, you know, they go over to the fridge, isn't that right? They'll get themselves a yogurt, and of course, if you believe the ads, the yogurt comes out with the spoon in it and everything. And they do a little dance and entertain the child before he gets to the yogurt. Or an apple or a piece of cake over to the fridge, isn't that right? Did we have fridges? No. There's no need for them. There was the point in having a fridge? Nothing to put into it. So what was the point in having a fridge? It was like, we were lucky if the food came into the house. I remember meeting my mother, Lord rest her. I remember we used to meet her halfway down the street with her shopping bag. I found my sister one day eating stuff out of the bag. She was wearing the bag over her head like a mule with a bag of oats. You look at the kids nowadays. There's no point in talking. I find sometimes that they don't be listening to you. My youngest fella now, trying to explain to him, looking in for his breakfast, like any child now, spoiled for choice. Looking in at cornflakes, Rice Krispies, Frosties, fruit and fibre, Special K, Honey Nut Loop, Sugar Puffs, Cocoa Pops, Corn Pops, Banana Bubbles, Shredded Wheat, Weetabix, Alpen, Bran Flakes. And you know what he says? There's nothing there I really liked. Nothing he liked. We would have been glad just to see the box the cornflakes came in. Just to be close to the box, to know what it would have been like. I said to him one day, I said, there's millions of children in Africa today starving. He says, yeah. Name one of them. That's why I look at the children now and I say good luck to them and God bless them with their lovely shoes and everything else, booties and sneakers and Doc Martens and sandals. We didn't get shoes, children. Our mothers used to paint our feet black and lace our toes together. That was what it was. Your child has an upset tummy now, little bit constant, which can happen. A child can get very bound. You know, you go down, you get them laxatives, syrup of figs, milk of magnesia, Andrews. What did we get? Our mothers used to put us sitting on our potties and tell us ghost stories. Sit down. Sit down, Nana. Are you ready? Dracula got out of the coffin. Does that bring back memories? Oh, what? Ah, yes, they were great days. That's why kids today, they don't understand hand-me-downs. I don't think the children understand hand-me-downs, do they? No, I could write a book on hand-me-downs, just hand-me-downs. I'm the youngest of 9, you know. Youngest of 9, I am. I had 8 older sisters. Yeah. Not fun. Not fun. I remember arriving in school one day in the same dress as the teacher. This is true. Sat in the front of the class, very upset, as you can imagine. And he wasn't too pleased either. He was very upset. Yeah. We had some great times. Had we not got great times, didn't we? I think they were great. The games, we played games out of nothing, isn't that right? When we were kids, a bit of chalk and you could play hopscotch. Who remembers hopscotch? Wasn't that a great game? You did out your chalk out there and you did your squares and your numbers. That was a game you just played out on the old concrete, isn't that true? And the little thing, what was the thing? Can you remember the thing you used to... The piggy, isn't that right? We used to throw it down. What was it? A stone or so. Or a polish box. Well, you couldn't give the kids a polish box now, of course. No way can you give them polish. You can't. The children know what I'm talking about. No, you can't give them polished tins nowadays. And we had so much fun. Even if you ran out of chalk, it was no problem. Sure it wasn't? No, there was always statues in the house. Well, naturally, you had to have great respect for the Sacred Heart and Our Blessed Lady. But St. Anthony came under some pressure in our house. He was on chalk duty most of the time. Do you remember? I think St. Anthony actually, in our house, he actually learned how to back off. You'd see you walking up to him. Anto, I think they're on chalk duty today. And you'd hear him saying, oh no. And you bring him out behind you. Remember, you have to smuggle him out. And hop him off the windowsill. Ma, St. Anthony's after falling down off the shelf, Ma. I think his head is after coming off. I'll put him under the stairs. And I'll glue it back after. And you get his head then, and you'd run it down the street, and you'd draw your knives. You'd wear him down as far as his eyebrows. Your mother tried to glue it back. Where's his face? Good days they were. What was it? What was it about the old... I think there was something about when we were young. Maybe it was only in Dublin, but your mother had this obsession about having clean underwear. Does anybody remember that? Remember your mother said, make sure you have clean underwear leaving this house. Does anybody remember that? What was it? It had nothing to do with hygiene or comfort. That's right. Do you know why? In case you get knocked down. You might get knocked down by a bus. This was the reason for having clean underwear. The theory obviously was that, if you were knocked down by a bus, at least when you'd get to the hospital, they'd know you came from a respectable family because your underwear was clean. You may have your head under your arm or your leg over your shoulder, but you'd have clean cacks. This was the whole idea. And that wasn't the theory at all, because it didn't work that way. What they didn't realize was that if you're going to be knocked down by a bus, if you even think you're going to be knocked down by a bus, you see a bus coming at you, and you can't get out of the way. It doesn't matter how clean. I'm serious. You're going to, if you think about it, you're going to shout your head off. And you'll be destroyed when you get to the hospital. Ah, yes, these are the great things. It only goes to show you the way kids think. And my youngest fella told me a very true story. And he said it's about a mother snake. And she lives in the jungle in a semi-detached suburban snake pit. This is the way the young fella told me the joke, my little fella. And he said that the mother snake had 3 baby snakes. And she wanted to go shopping one day, and she didn't want to bring the baby snakes with her to the shop. So she asked them if they wouldn't mind, hissing around the pit until she came home. Yes, hissing around the pit, because snakes do hiss. And they do live in a pit. So they said, fair enough. And she says, if it's a thing that I'm late coming home, she says, I want you to go over to Mrs. Potts' pit and hiss. Because Mrs. Potts was a neighbouring snake who didn't have her own snakes. So they said, fair enough. Hiss around the pit till you come back. If you're late coming home, over to Mrs. Potts' pit to hiss. She said, that's it. So she went off to the shops, and the baby snakes started hissing around the pit. And right enough, she's late coming home, and they decide, well, we better stop hissing around our own pit and go over to Mrs. Potts' pit to hiss, because that's what she said. So they stopped hissing around their own pit, went over to Mrs. Potts' pit, and started hissing around Mrs. Potts' pit. Now, they're hissing around Mrs. Potts' pit for ages when Mrs. Potts comes out, sees them hissing around the pit, and really lets a roar. And she frightened us. The snakes were very upset. She scared them. She said, you can't hiss around my pit. Go back to your own pit and hiss. And they immediately stopped hissing around Mrs. Potts' pit, went back to their own pit and hissed. And they're hissing and crying at the same time when the mother snake came home. And she says, why are you crying? And he said, we were hissing around our pit all day. You said if you're late coming over, go over to Mrs. Potts' pit to hiss. So we went over to Mrs. Potts' pit, and we're hissing around Mrs. Potts' pit, and Mrs. Potts said, go back to your own pit and hiss. And the mother snake says, she has a bloody nerve. She has some nerve. I remember Mrs. Potts when she hadn't got a pit to hiss in. That's kids for you, and it's very, very special. That's why I say to the children today, it's a very important... My 2 youngest boys say, they say things to me from time to time, and one of them said to me there quite a couple of years ago, in actual fact, he had a little pet rabbit, and he says,
what happened if the rabbit died? If he got killed?
Well, I said if he died, sure, we'd have a little party for him. And I said, I'd invite all your pals around, and we'd put him in a little box, and we'd bury him at the end of the garden, and I'd give you lemonade and sweeties.
He said, can we kill him now?
What are kids like? I don't know what kids are like. 1977, in Dublin Zoo, the Indian elephant escaped. And it was unheard of for this type of an event to happen. And there was a lot of embarrassment. People were very upset that the elephant escaped. But to make matters worse, it went missing for 2 weeks. Now, we're talking about an elephant. If it was a penguin, maybe, or an ostrich or something, We're talking about a 5.5-ton elephant going missing for 2 weeks. And it ended up in County Galway. Which even makes it worse. And I could never understand like how nobody's seen it going through Tyrrell's Pass or somewhere like that. Or Athlone before the bypass. I could never understand. And it ended up in Connemara, out in Clifton, in Mrs. Murphy's back garden. And I want you to visualise, if you will, that Mrs. Murphy is a woman now. She's a very, very senior lady. She's no television. She didn't buy magazines. She really didn't leave the village ever in her life. So she didn't know what an elephant was. She hadn't a clue. She'd seen sheep and cows and hens and ducks and dogs and cats. But she'd never seen an elephant. So I want you to visualise what happens when the elephant comes into her back garden. She's just come in, where she's pulled a few heads of cabbage for the husband's dinner, and she's washing them at the sink. When the elephant comes in, and she gets a little bit distressed. Elephant comes in like this.
Oh, shit, shit, shit. Oh, shit, 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 shit. Shit, 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 shit. Oh, shit, 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 shit. Shit, 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 Seamus.
I'm glad his name was Seamus.
Shit, 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 Seamus. Come out quick. There's the beast out in the back garden.
Yes, don't be cutting yourself. There's only Dordan's bull from up the road.
Bull, my bull. It's the size of 6 bulbs.
What's he doing?
He's pulling up heads of cabbage with his tail.
Oh, that's a good one. And what's he doing with the heads of cabbage?
If I told you, you wouldn't believe.
Oh, God. That poor unfortunate woman. Who's on phone for the song? Come on. Mary, hold the candle steady while I shave the chicken's lip. How's it going there? How's it going? There. I can never see the audience, but I know you're there. I always close my eyes in case there's someone in the audience I owe money to. Never know. Well, no, can't matter. Oh, can't matter. Well, how's it going and how's the crack? I went down there and I turned back. I went through Galway one fine day, saw a guard upon his way. He was riding a bike through Ware Square. I appeared from I don't know where. Don't know where I was going, or where I was coming from. The guard was on the bike. And I noticed his face covered in pain. It was only then I realised there was no saddle on the bike. I said, how's it going there, guard, and how's the crack? He wasn't too pleased with me choice of words. I said, how do you ride a bike with no saddle? Says he, very bloomin' carefully, I know. Well, to me better. Oh, to me better. Well, how's it going and how's the crack? I came through Limerick on the way back. Met the 5-legged woman from out the road towards Clare. I never met a woman before with 5 legs. She had a leg here, another one there, another one here, another one there, and one to spare. I could hardly keep up with her, she was moving so fast. She was like Spider-Woman. And I noticed she was crying. I said, what are you crying for? You have a lovely pair of legs and a half. says I can never get shoes to match. I said it could be worse. At least your knickers fit like a glove. She wasn't totally in. And oh, kill Chandra. Oh, kill Chandra. Well, how was the crack and how was it going? I went down there to the town of Athlone. I was on the road out to Roscommon. Saw this fine-looking girl walking along the road, and I was rather amazed. She was walking along beside a cow on a rope. And I says to her, what's a fine-looking girl like you doing with an old cow like that? She says, I'm taking the cow to the bull. I said, could your father not do that? She says, no, it has to be the bull. Fair play to your father. Says, I will, multi-farnham. Oh, multi-farnham. Well, how was it going and how was the crack? I came through Dunlavin on the way back. And I knocked on a small little house's door. And I said to the woman, one of your hens has stopped laying. She says, how do you know? I says, I'm after driving over to look at that. Oh, she says, it goes to show you're a Dublin Jackeen. She says, that's not a hen at all, it's a cockerel. I said, well, in that case, I'd like to replace it for you. She says, you can please yourself. The hens are out the bag. Well, no, Connemara. Up ya by ya. Quite recently, I was on the way back from the United States, and I was on my way back, and naturally, very excited, very anxious to see herself, and I came back, unfortunately, on a charter. The flight that I wanted wasn't available, so I got on. I'll never forget it. I was so nervous getting on the plane that I phoned my wife beforehand, and I said, the usual thing, hello, darling, how are you? She's going, woo. I said, I keep thinking about you ever since I left home. I said, you're on my mind. She's going, woo. I said, I keep thinking about the last time we made mad, passionate love together. And she's going, woo, who is this? I mean, what are you supposed to do? I have a doctor, and I can't mention his name, naturally enough, we can't mention it, and my grandmother, God bless her heart, 93 years of age. Isn't that fantastic? 93 years of age, my gran. Yes, indeed, 93. And she could tell you stories, but she used to send my granddad, Lord rest him, she used to send him to the doctor regularly for checkups. I'm not living with half a man. Go to the doctor, make sure you're working. And the poor man used to go to this doctor, and very strange doctor now, I don't mind telling you. He gave a man 6 months to live, and the man couldn't pay his bill, he gave him another 6 months. I can't understand. How can a doctor do something like this? He was treating a woman in Dublin for 3 years for yellow jaundice before he realised she was Japanese. Now, this is a fact. This is a strange doctor. And my poor grandfather went to the doctor, and naturally enough, he was very, very, he was nervous. And the doctor checked him out, and he gave him all the tests and the stress test, and he gave him the BCG, and the ECG, the BBC, ITV, RTE, and VHI. And after examining him, he says, you're perfect. He says, you have a body, he says, of a 50-year-old, he says. What age are you? And the grandfather said, 75. But he says, you're the body of a 55-year-old man. He says, I can't believe it is, you're perfect. He says, how do you feel generally? Oh, no problem. He says, are you regular? You go, oh, regular as clockwork. Every morning I'm down for... He said, you don't have to tell us, just once we know you're regular. Yeah. Good, said the doctor. He said, and what about your waterworks department? He says, are you regular? Wee-wee? Oh, no problem. Several times during the day I do me wee-wee. And in actual fact, I'm out of the bed at 3 o'clock every morning, religiously out of the bed, downstairs to do me wee-wee. And not only that, but God himself turns the light on for me when I'm gone. And turns it off and finished. So the doctor was going, this fella's not the full shilling. Rings up the granny, says, I just checked out your husband, and I don't think he's playing with the full deck. What do you mean? Well, I don't think the lift is going all the way to the top floor here. I think he might be losing whatever bit of sense he has. What do you mean? He said, well, I asked him, he says he gets out of the bed at 3 o'clock in the morning to do his wee-wee. And he said God turns the light on for him and turns it... Oh, God, don't tell me he's piddling in the fridge again. tell me he's peeing in the fridge. Don't tell me he's peeing in the fridge again. And romance is something, I mean, here we are talking about marriage and grandmothers and children and everything. Romance is something I can honestly tell you here tonight, myself and the missus. You know, we have rows and arguments like everybody else, but, you know, we never sleep on a row. That's the secret. Never go to bed on an argument. And, you know, although once we were up for 6 months, I'll never forget that now. It was a long night. And there's nothing I wouldn't do for my wife, and nothing she wouldn't do for me. Isn't that nice? Yeah, that's how we go through life. Do nothing for each other. We went one time to a beautiful romantic restaurant, and myself and her, this was very romantic, and all the tables had the candles lit, and we're very excited, sitting down, little table for two. And as we sat down, there was a couple sitting opposite us in the other corner at a table for two. And they were kind of being romantic. They were making eyes at each other, and they were, you know, doing footsies under the table and holding hands and doing body language. You know, years ago we called it chatting up. But you know body language, you know. Doing all this sort of stuff with each other. Sicken you, wouldn't it? And the next minute, out of the blue, the two of them are there, and the next minute, I thought your man was doing a limbo dance. He starts to slide like this. And he slides down like this. And he slides right down under the table. I couldn't believe it. Right under the table he goes, disappears. And I'm saying to the wife, oh. And your woman just sat there smoking as if nothing had happened. Your man underneath the table. So I said, I said, somebody's going to have to say something. I said, excuse me. I said, excuse me, missus. I said, in case you don't know, I says, we're here, I says. And she just sat there as if I was saying nothing. I said, excuse me, I says, for your information. I said, your husband, I says, has just slipped down, I says, underneath the table. I said. And she says, oh no, that's where you're wrong. She says, my husband has just walked in the door. He remembers the first time he met her. He remembers the first thing she said. He remembers the first time he held her on the night that they said they'd be wed. He remembers her sweet way of saying, honey, has something gone wrong? He remembers the fun and the teasing and the reason he wrote her this song. I'll give you a daisy a day, dear. I'll give you a daisy a day. I love you until the rivers run still and the four winds we know blow away. Now they'd walk down the street in the evening, and for years I would see them go by. For their love it was more than the clothes that they wore could be seen in the gleam of their eyes. As a kid they would take me for candy, and I'd love to go tagging along. We'd hold hands while we'd walk to the corner. Then the old man would sing her his song. I'll give you a daisy a day, dear. I'll give you a daisy a day. I love you until the rivers run still and the four winds we know blow away. Now he walks down the street in the evening, and he stops by the old candy store, and I somehow believe he's believing that he's holding her hand like before, for he feels all her love walking with him, and he smiles at the things she might say. Then the old man goes up to the hilltop, and he gives her a daisy a day. I'll give you a daisy a day, dear. I'll give you a daisy a day. I'll love you until the rivers run still, and the four winds we know blow away. Down, I can't mention the name of the town where they come from. I visualise these two fellas having the few drinks. They go off, they're living beside each other in two little cottages, and they've never really been anywhere before. So they decide to go to the Ballinasloe horse fair to buy themselves a couple of donkeys. And off they go, and they buy a couple of donkeys, and they're on their way home, and they're riding the two donkeys back, and they're passing by this beautiful modern pub, beautiful bar. And they decide, we'll go in here. So they tie the two donkeys outside, and in they go, and they're sitting down at the counter. Now, you can imagine these fellas have never seen electricity before. They didn't even see carpet, because they'd no carpet in their own cottage. And they're going, my God, look at that. The holy indoor grass. Look at that, mate. They've got red grass. I never saw that before. And they're looking around, and they come up to the counter to have their few drinks. And when they go up to the counter, needless to say, they're very, very upset. Because right behind the bar are mirrors. It's mirrored from wall to wall. These fellas have never seen mirrors in their lives. Even when they'd be shaving at home, one lad would come into the other and describe it to him as he was going through the motions. So they're sitting down having a couple of drinks looking in the mirrors like that. They're drinking away for an hour, and one fella says, Michael, have a look. There's two lads, and they're looking at us since we came in. Have a look across now, don't look now. They know it, have a look, they know it. And they're saluting the two fellas. The other fellas says, I think they know us. They're looking at us and they're saluting. Goes on for another hour, drinking. And eventually one fella gets down off the stool and he's walking away, and his friend says, where are you going? He says, I'm going over to buy them a drink. The other fella says, come back. I think they're coming over to buy a drink for us. Nobody believes this story. People think I make this up. The two of them are ossified. Nothing. And one fella eventually says, hey, Michael, tell me this and tell me no more. Was it was it you or your brother was drowned at sea? The other fella had to think. He said, you have me there. You must have been me brother. I was never at sea in my life. And one guy goes before the other, and as sure as goodness he played a joke on his friend on the way home. He went outside, got his own donkey unyoked, and he took the other fella's donkey and untied it and turned it around back to front and tied him by the tail to the post. And he met his pal the following day. Well, Michael, how did you get on last night? Honestly, don't talk to me. I had my belly full of drink. And when I come out of the pub, some dirty blackguard
was after cutting the head off of my donkey. And I had to ride the donkey home with my finger stuck in his windpipe the whole way home. By golly, had he bad breath. Small little town down in County Clare, very, very small town in County Clare. But it seemed that the women in this small town were carrying on. Whatever you want to use in your imagination, have an extraterrestrial relationship. And the poor old parish priest's heart was broke. The parish priest's heart was broke because he was listening to the confessions every Saturday night, and these women coming in. Bless me, Father, for I had sinned, but I had my hanky-panky last week with my cooking, and I had hanky-panky. And the next woman said, bless me, Father, for I had sinned, but I had hanky-panky last week, and I got my heart, and I had hanky. It was all hanky-panky, hanky-panky. And the priest got fed up, was he? He got fed up. And he got on the pulpit one morning, he says, look it, he says, if you can't cut out this habit, he says, for goodness sake, have respect for me, he said. For goodness sake, would you please change the word hanky-panky? He said, just say I fell. He said, I will know exactly what you're talking about. And it didn't stop them. They still came in the confession every Saturday night. Bless me, Father, for I had sinned, but I fell last week with John my husband. I fell last week with my clothes too. And the next one, bless me, Father, for I had sinned, but I fell last week with John. It was all fell. And that priest became ill. And they had to take him off to the hospital. They had to take him off to the hospital, and they sent down this other priest to take his place. And the new priest didn't get a chance to meet the old priest. So we didn't get to know that there was a word switch in operation in the parish. And you can visualize him now sitting down every Saturday night, and the women going, bless me, Father, for I had sinned, but I fell last week with John my husband, and I fell last week with Michael O'Toole and Brandy Keeney, and I fell, and it was all I fell. And the new priest couldn't stand it. He said, this is ridiculous. He said, this town, he says, is rubbish. He said, somebody is going to have to take responsibility for this. And he went to the council meeting on the Monday night. And he waited till they were all sitting down, waffling at each other. And he stood up and he says, I don't know whether you realize it or not, he says, but he says, I am the new priest in this parish. And someone, he says, is going to have to take responsibility for the disgraceful condition of the footpaths in this here town. He said, there's women falling morning, noon, and night. And somebody will have to take responsibility. And of course, the whole chamber erupted into laughter. And everybody laughed their heads out because they all knew the old priest and they knew there was a word change. And the county councillor himself nearly had to be carried out. He was laughing so much. And the priest looked at him. He says, I don't know why you're laughing, sir. He said, your wife fell 3 times last week.
Dublin town, there lives a girl fairer than the flower I'm wearing. Rose Donahue, all fresh and new, and I love her past all caring. And there she goes, my rings and rose, in God's garden there's none rarer. And there she goes, my rings and rose, Dublin town has seen none fairer. Sweet 17, my seamstress queen, she's no bigger than a thimble, soft satin skin, street Arabs grin. Sure, she makes the work look simple. And there she goes, my rings and rose. In God's garden there's none rarer. And there she goes, my rings and rose. Dublin town has seen none fairer. 3 yards of lace to walk with grace, and a golden ring she's asking. The saving slow, but still I know that our love is everlasting. And there she goes, my rings and rose. In God's garden there's none rarer. And there she goes, my rings and rose. Dublin town has seen none fairer. And there she goes, my rings and rose. In God's garden there's none rarer. And there she goes, my rings and rose. Dublin town has seen none fairer.
People sometimes say, is this fella still with you, or whatever. And I want to tell you that he is. This particular fella has, in actual fact, been my pal. Do you know who I'm talking about? Is it Butler? Right! Where's me stand? Right! Right! No, that's posh. Right! Who said right? Dickie Rock. But I wasn't a happy child. I got no love. We were very, very, very poor. We were very, very poor. No, we were poorer than that. We were so poor we thought knives and forks was jewellery. I remember when we went along to feed the ducks, we were so poor the ducks used to throw the bread back at us. Because I wasn't a happy child. Yeah, see, I was born when my mother was ill. Yeah, my mammy wasn't expecting me at all. Someone said to me, mammy, one day, said, "Are they expecting?" She says, "No, carrying it for a friend." And we were very unfortunate. See, the thing about it was, I remember we had lovely neighbours. We had a lovely neighbour. I remember the woman next door to us, and she was very, very nice. She was very she was a dirty old cow. Our house was very... Our house was so dirty that the mice used to wear overalls. You had to wipe your feet leaving the house. That's how dirty it was. And the walls of our house were very, very thin. Very thin. I opened up the oven one day and I found a fella next door dipping his bread in our gravy. But I tried to be good, because I was a happy child. Even though we were poor, we were miserable. We weren't happy at all. We weren't happy. And see, my mammy didn't even know she was stagnant. Or pregnant. She didn't know she was pregnant. See, and all the women didn't know they were pregnant. My mammy just thought she was putting on weight.
And it was the woman next door who told her that she'd have to, you know, she said, I think I'm going to have a baby. So my mammy said, where? And the woman said, here, if you don't get to the hospital, never. And we were very, very lucky that this particular woman, her husband was a baker, and he had a bread van. So he said he'd drive me mammy to the Eternity Hospital. Well, he was a baker. He knew the bun in the oven. Well, you know. What can you expect? He used his loaf, didn't he? And there was me mammy in the back of the bread van going to the Eternity Hospital. And when the van driver came to the hospital, there was a big sign on the gate and it said, all deliveries around the back. And my mammy was brought in through the laundry department. I'd never forget it if I lived to be normal. So they put me mammy on the trolley bed. And she's lying down on the trolley bed, and there was 4 other women up in the eternity ward. And my mammy was 6, or 5. And they were all up there, and 3 of them went in and had their babies before me mammy. And she got very upset, she did. And she said to the nurse, come here, she says, Swanhead, come here. She says, I was here before those 3. Now, she said, you can do me next. As if you could change. So, and anyway, me mammy she just hiccuped, and there I was. Yeah, I was, but I was an ugly little. I'll tell you what I was. I was a very ugly child. Yeah, yeah. And my mammy didn't want me. My mammy kept saying, "That's not my child." She said, "Put that child back," she said, and give me 2 smaller ones. Can you imagine? Can you imagine that? And I tell you, I got my eyes full, I did. I got my eyes full because the nurse, only for the nurse, now I don't know what would have happened. So the nurse put me straight into the incinerator. The incubator, yeah, the incubator, not the incinerator. No wonder the arse was burned off. It was illegal. So, I'm lying down in the incubator. I'm right outside the eternity ward, and I learned more that day than I did since. And you go through a lot, don't you, girls? Don't you go through a lot? Don't you go through a lot having oh, God, I don't know how you have babies. God Almighty, I'll never forget that poor Mrs. Mulligan. Mrs. Mulligan came into the Eternity Hospital and merciful hour. She was everywhere. This woman, God bless her, said, this woman is going to have a family. That this woman's going to have her grandchildren and all at the same time. And I tell you the truth, I wasn't far out. Do you know what she had? Sexy tuplets. Sexy tuplets. I swear she had sexy tuplets. That's the technical term for 6 babies. A lot of people don't know that. Sexy tuplets. 6 babies. Or 3 sets of twins, if you can't remember sets of twins. Or 2 sets of triplets. It's much the same. Or even twins and quadruplets. Once it's 6, okay? Or quintuplets and an only child. 6. True. Yeah. A litter. So she came in. And there was no lights in the Eternity Hospital. There wasn't a light, the electricity was gone. So all they had was a flashlight. A flash lamp was all they had. There was the doctor, the nurse, and the midwife. And the flash lamp, and God bless us all, the doctor, the sweat was dripping out of him. Oh, the Presbyterian was running down his chest. And he's there, and after he delivered the 4th child, he started to panic. Because, I mean, he wasn't expecting half of them. And he delivered the fourth, and when he seen the fifth child coming into the world, he grabbed the flash lamps and said, oh God, he said, the light is attracting them, he said. He ran. But I wasn't really happy, I wasn't. Because I remember the other woman that came in. She was very unfortunate. There was always people unfortunate. But I remember now, for instance, when I was only young, my sister had an unfortunate problem. God bless us all. Very unfortunate. Nothing happened in there. She was a teenager and no development. Washboard chest. And she was very embarrassed, and she was so embarrassed she couldn't go for one of them herself. The bra thing. And she sent me for the... Imagine asking me to go and get one of them. Because I was only a young fella, I didn't even know the name of them. And I went into the Lincoln Jury department. I'm in the Lincoln Jury department, and the lady was there. A lovely lady. Now, God bless us all, she really was. And she's standing there. And I went over to her and I said, my sister looking for the thing that you wear. And the lady says, oh, a big portrait? She's very posh. I said, she's looking for a holder. For holding what? I said, not an awful lot, actually, today. Or a bit of gear, I said, you know. She's looking for the sling. Oh, you mean a brazier? I said, yeah, a brazier, I said. Oh, she says, what bust? I said, nothing, it just wore it was fine. That's because I didn't know. No, she said, what size? Now, how would I know? I was only a young fella. I mean, the only size I knew was 26 by 1 3/8. That was the only thing I ever knew. The tire off me bike. Remember that? 26 by 1 3/8. And I said to her, I don't really know. And she said, well, I can't give you one unless I knew approximate size. She said, could you describe? Is it like a grapefruit? I know, so they wouldn't be like grapefruit now. I said, I made them be honest with you. I said, she'd like them to be like grapefruit. She says, what about an orange? No, not even an outspan, I said. She says, an egg? I said, an egg. Fried. And what she said... But it wasn't easy for us. It wasn't easy for us when we were kids. Sure, it wasn't easy for us when we were kids. No, I didn't know anything. And I remember, like, it was difficult, you know, trying to think, you know, the things that we didn't know. I remember coming out of the chapel one day, and when we came out, because my mammy was after giving out to me. And I was in the chapel, because I was trying to get the money back. I brought candles in, you see, and I was trying to get the money out for the candles. There were candles I got in another chapel. I was trying to do a trade in, and the knife was getting caught in this lock. And we came out of the chapel, and I'll never forget it. It's something that still sticks out with me mind. There was 2 dogs outside the chapel. There was these 2 dogs, and they were very, very close. Well, they were quite attached, and I came out. And I was looking at the 2 dogs, and I said to me, Mammy, I said, what are them dogs doing? She said, don't be looking at them. Look over at the statue of God. Don't be looking at them. Look over at them. And I could see, like, and I knew, I mean, I wasn't in Egypt. I knew, and they were soaking. Oh, the water was dripping off them. There was people putting buckets of water on them and all. I thought they were out to be on fire or something. You know, hot dogs. So I said to him, I said, now, there's something strange here. And you could see, I mean, they went side by side now. They were close to the, you know, they were kind of, there was a kind of a front dog, kind of, and there was a back dog as well. And I thought that the front dog was after telling a joke to the back dog. But the back dog was kind of roaring and laughing, he was. He'd go, I said, oh my God. And I said to me, Mammy, she said, well, I'll tell you. I said, do you see the dog in the front? She said, not well. She said, the other dog is pushing her to the hospital. Now, a lot of people don't believe some of my stories because they think I made them up. But really and truly, because I come from a large family, I do. Yeah, there's only two of us, but we were huge. And I remember in school, we had one teacher that we didn't really like. Now, we didn't like most of them. And some of the lads are here from James Street School tonight, and they could back me up when I say that. Am I right or wrong? There was a few teachers there we felt a bit strange about. Now, we had one teacher in particular, and every time he'd be walking down the classroom, he'd say, OK, you do that. You do that, and you do that. And when you go home tonight, do that. And he'd give us our homework, and we'd have to do that, do that, do that. So we called him Do That. That was the name that stuck to him, Do That. And we'd all kind of say, here comes Do That. So one day, Do That is writing on the board at the front of the classroom, and he's writing down things on it. And I'll never forget it. Didn't he have an awful accident? Because he kind of had his back to us, kind of, he was writing on the board. And he got this unmerciful clatter right in the back of the skull. I'll never forget it. And I mean, we were all sitting down. The desk just came through the air on its own. And one of the lads even said that, you know, the desk got very agitated. And it got angry, and the desk just kind of jumped over the classroom, and we couldn't stop it. And I hit him in the back of the head. And the next minute, Do That, oh, he just slid down the board like that. He went down like a ton of Do That. So when he slid down, we all kind of went, oh, Do That down. And the headmaster was going by, and he stuck his head in through the door, you see, and he kind of looked around, and he said, where's Do That? And we kind of said, Do That down. He said, Do that down where? And we kind of said, Do that down there. And he said, what's Do That doing down there? And we said, Do That down there dead. And he said, are you telling me Do That down there dead as Dodo? And we said, Do That down there dead as Dodo, don't you doubt that. And he said, OK. Who did that to do that? He said, did you do that to do that? Or did you do that to do that? And we said, we didn't do that to do that. He said, OK. Well, he said, somebody's going to have to tell Do That. Do That's wife that Do That's dead. So Mrs. Do That will have to be told. And Hatcher Corrigan put his hand up, he said, I'll tell her. He said, you're telling nothing. He said, you're a troublemaker. He said, if you can just cast your mind back, he says, to the last teacher that was killed in this classroom. You nearly killed his wife as well. Walking up to her in the supermarket. He said, are you the widow O'Shaughnessy? She says, no. He said, do you want to bet? There's no way to break the news. So Rasha Flanagan said, I'll tell. And Rasha was very gentle. He said, I'll tell Mrs. Do That dead, and I'll break it gently. And on his way home that evening, he called into Duda's house. And he knocked on the door, and Mrs. Duda came down. And she opened the door in her nightdress. No, funny place to have a door. And he said, "Are you Mrs. Duda?" She said, "Yeah." He says, "Are you married to Mr. Duda?" He says, "Yeah." He says, "Guess who died in school today? Duda, Duda."